generation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
From the VON Newsline, this is the VON Major Newscast.
Good evening, I am Tamia Reed, in with your VON Major News package for today, Friday, 31st May 2019. In our lead stories, nationally, preparations being done for upcoming Atlantic hurricane season, so says Nevis's disaster management minister. And Premier Brantley addresses blacklisted Russian alleged associations to himself and to SKN. Regionally, USVI Governor Albert Bryan submits $1.2 billion executive budget. Internationally, Human Rights Watch condemns France for handing over their citizens suspected of crimes to countries that use torture. And in sports, West Indies bumper warfare could take World Cup by storm, says former England spinner Graham Swan. We'll have the details to these and other stories after this message.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse,
Vaughan.
Welcome back, and now the national news in detail. At the Premier's monthly press conference on May 30th, 2019, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, addressed an article published on May 24th, 2019 from the UK's The Guardian by a journalist, Miss Juliet Garside. The article implied that a Mr. Andrei Pavlov, a Russian national blacklisted since 2014, had visited the EU 70 times over the past 4 years on a St. Kitts and Nevis passport. It went further to imply that he had achieved the passport under the CBI program through the Nevis law firm Daniel Brantley and Associates, to which Mr. Brantley had association with prior to becoming Deputy Premier. Premier Brantley exclaimed that in speaking with the journalist, he explained that Mr. Pavlov did not receive any assistance from Daniel Brantley and Associates, and that he was not a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I confirmed to them that Mr. Pavlov was never a client of Daniel Brantley, and Mr. Pavlov never applied for citizenship here and was never granted citizenship here, and therefore could not have traveled on a St. Kitts and Nevis passport within the EU.
Premier Brantley further added that the journalist published the article with little regard of the facts she had been presented with during an interview he had with her on May 24, 2019, prior to the article's release.
What makes it even more egregious is that I spoke to the author of the article before the article was published, and I said to her, these are the facts. She nevertheless published the article.
Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley. Meanwhile, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis is calling for an apology from 2 European EU parliamentarians for an apology following their discrediting of St. Kitts and Nevis Citizen by Investment CBI program.
We are very disappointed that 2 members of the European Parliament would have written a letter to the EU Commission and the President of the European Council to request scrutiny of our program without a scintilla of evidence of any wrongdoing by anyone in our program. We therefore call on those 2 MPs, Madam Gomez and Shark, to recall their letters and to apologize to our people.
Prime Minister Harris was speaking at his press conference on May 29, 2019. This comes amidst allegations that Nevis's Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, aided Russian national Mr. Andrei Pavlov in obtaining a St. Kitts and Nevis passport. The letter, written on May 10, 2019, by the MPs Anna Gomez and Mariette Schack, called for the immediate termination of the visa waiver for St. Kitts citizens upon false pretenses that the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Program, which has been in place for 35 years, has allowed persons of international criminal interest to travel with a St. Kitts and Nevis passport. Former Secretary General of the St. Kitts and Nevis Commission for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Mr. Antonio Maynard, has been appointed to a new post according to Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. Prime Minister Harris made the announcement during his monthly press conference, which was held on Wednesday, May 29th.
I am happy to advise that the Honorable Vance Amy, Minister with responsibility for Social Security, has informed the Cabinet that Mr. Antonio Maynard, former Secretary General of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Commission for UNESCO, has been appointed Chief Executive Officer of the Social Security Board effective June 2019.
He stated that
Mr. Maynard emerged as the best choice to lead Social Security at this point in time. From a field of excellent candidates, some 51 of them, I'm told, applied for the post. Amongst the candidates were nationals from St. Kitts and Nevis, the Caribbean region, and beyond, including the USA and Canada. I commend Mr. Maynard for the major successes in his own career development, and I am certain that he will surpass all expectations.
Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. UNESCO is an agency that contributes to peace and security by promoting international collaboration through educational, scientific, and cultural reforms in order to increase universal respect for justice, the rule of law. The agency has 193 member states and 11 associate members. At his monthly press conference, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, thanked Dr. Lornette Mills Charitable Fund in partnership with the Nevis Association of South Florida for their donation towards the school meals program.
She has just donated $30,600. That donation will assist 37 primary school students and 16 secondary school students for a period of 6 months, and that will assist them with their lunches for that period. There was a ceremony held on April 30th where we had the check of $30,600 being handed over. The Ministry of Education, and by extension the entire Nevis Island administration, takes the opportunity to thank Dr. Mills and her Lornette Mills Charitable Fund and the Nevis Association of South Florida for their continued support and commitment to our students.
In the past, Dr. Lornette Mills Charitable Fund has donated to the school's meals program, which benefits school children in need. Previous contributions started at US $5,000 per year, which sharply increased to an average of US $12,000 per year for the past 2 years since 2016 due to the demand. She also has donated to the annual primary and secondary school spelling bee competition every year with an average of US $1,600 per year. Finally, the Department of Community Development here on Nevis is set to host its second annual Gospel Explosion. The event is scheduled to take place tomorrow, Saturday, 1st June 2019, at the Nevis Cultural Village beginning at 7 p.m. Director of the Department of Community Development is Mrs. Janet Meloni.
We will be having a gospel song competition with 8 talented Nevian youth, and then we have a liturgical dance competition with 5 church groups. Following that, we have a concert, and the concert will feature DJ Nicholas out of Jamaica and Positive out of Trinidad.
But what is the aim of having such an event? According to the director, the event seeks to reinstate and strengthen Christian values into the youths of today.
Culturally, Nevis has been a religious society, and Christianity was basically the foundation on which our values were built. And a lot of times we have a lot of activities that get towards the secular world, but we are trying to strike a balance here in that some of the youth, they do not attend some of these events like cultural activities. So in striking a balance, we feel as if that they are youth, they have energy, they too like wholesome entertainment, and so it's to provide godly and positive entertainment for the youth, and also to provide a platform and avenue where these youth, especially those that are Christian-based, to express their talent.
She also noted that this type of event will aid with the crime situation here on the island.
It should have an impact on the crime situation that have plagued the island. The artists last year, they were able to reach out to youth and would have met with them. So this afternoon, they will be in town and they will be sharing their testimonies. We would have invited a lot of youth groups to come on in town to hear the artists as they testify. If you look at their background, positive music was brought out of tragedy in that he lost his mother and his sister, and from then he started singing gospel music, and that would have helped him to overcome such a challenge that he faced as a young man. Nicholas used to be a rebellious youth who smoked a lot, involved in robberies and such like, and so he turned to Christ, and that's his testimony to tell the youth that Jesus is the way and for them to stay away from crime or criminal activities.
Director of the Department of Community Development, Mrs. Janet Meloni. The 2019 Atlantic hurricane season will officially commence tomorrow, Saturday, June 1st, and is forecast to have 9 to 15 named storms. 4 to 8 could become hurricanes, including 2 to 4 major hurricanes, category 3, 4, or 5, according to the NOAA. However, subtropical storm Andrea formed on May 20th, marking the record 5th year in a row where a tropical or subtropical cyclone developed before the official start of the season. Moreover, in light of the aforementioned, here is Nevis's Minister with responsibility for disaster management, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers.
I want to say to the general public that those who doubt the fact that there is climate change affecting us, it is real. Climate variability is real also. So things are happening to our climate that many of us have never experienced before. I want to say that the Nevis Island administration has had the necessary preparation done through its disaster management agency. There have been training, there have been information that have been imparted, and we continue to do so. And I want to say that you can prepare as adequately as possible for any hurricane or hurricane season.
Mr. Jeffers was speaking during last evening's edition of the Government at Work program, which is aired here on Von Radio. He added that an official visit to the hurricane shelters on the island has been scheduled as part of efforts to ensure that they are in a suitable condition.
We have scheduled, and have been doing it all along anyway, but there is an official visit to all of the hurricane centers. That should take place, I believe, by Monday. But of course, over the last 12 months, we have been preparing ourselves in terms of doing the necessary repairs to the various centers, hurricane shelters, I should say, which obviously are the community centers. So we have been doing the necessary repairs over the last 12 months.
Nevis's Minister with responsibility for disaster management, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. In related news, as the 2019 Atlantic hurricane season begins on June 1st, the Nevis Disaster Management Department are taking the necessary steps towards ensuring the public is prepared and aware. Director at the department, Mr. Brian Dyer, in speaking to the VON News line, outlined some of the activities his department has been engaging the public in.
We have conducted a number of training sessions. We still have some training sessions to go. We will be installing some new equipment at the department, and we still have some workshops coming on stream to enhance our disaster plan.
Aside from hurricanes, the department covers 11 other disaster areas, which include flooding, fires, tsunamis, drought, earthquakes, and the like. According to the Director Dyer, his department continues to work on its disaster plan to cover all 12 disaster areas.
The current status of our disaster plan it's more hurricane centric. I need to reflect all 12 hazards and a response plan that to suit all hazards. So later in the year, we should be working on enhancing that plan. We did some work 2 years ago on this plan, but I'm not satisfied yet. So it's a continuous process, and we'll continue to work until we get to the optimum position where we are satisfied.
Director of the Nevis Disaster Management Department, Mr. Brian Dyer. That's the national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vonradio.com or check us out on Facebook at Von Radio or our Von Radio YouTube channel for these and other stories. News from across the region is next.
Ladies and gentlemen, this here's another one for the steppers.
Swipe to win big in 2019. That's right, the Bank of Nevis Limited is once again giving you, our valued customers, a chance to win big. To swipe or use your Bond Visa credit card for US $100 for a chance to win a cruise for two, an iPhone XS, or a grocery dash at Best Buy Supermarket.
Say what?
Sign up for a Bond Visa credit card and automatically be entered for a chance to win. This offer ends August 31st, 2019. So tell your friends and family to swipe to win big with the Bank of Nevis. The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram.
Welcome back, and now the regional news in detail. Out of the USVI, Governor Albert Bryan Jr. on Thursday submitted his first executive budget to the 33rd Legislature to fund the operations of the Government of the Virgin Islands for fiscal year 2020. Bryan's 2020 budget proposes $1.2 billion in expenditures, which includes $69.1 million for debt service payments, $260.3 million in federal funds, and $941.9 million in local funds, according to a news release from Government House issued Thursday evening. Bryan said the budget's revenue reflect an economy powered temporarily by recovery efforts after 2017 storms. The governor's FY 2020 budget assumes no debt financing or new taxes and includes full funding for the pay increases negotiated by the previous administration, which added an additional $41 million to the personnel services section of the budget. It also includes 1% set aside for expected salary increases. The budget proposes $817.8 million for the executive branch, a decrease of $39.4 million for FY 2019, $23 million for the legislative branch, and $35.2 million for the judicial branch. Out of Trinidad and Tobago, dozens of Venezuelans were told to return to Achievers Banquet Hall at Duncan Village, San Fernando, because of a mix-up of forms for registrations. From as early as 5 p.m. yesterday, Venezuelans began gathering outside the compound, waiting for the process to start. Some slept on the grass, including children, and at about 7 a.m. today, the gates were open. Under the watchful eyes of police, the immigrants went in batches of 100. Despite waiting for hours, they say it has become normal to stay overnight to get any service because of the economic situation in Venezuela. It was only after the immigrants were processed they realized many filled out the wrong documents. An interpreter told the Venezuelans to fill out the correct forms before returning. In Guyana, former President Donald Ramota is on record saying he had no knowledge that ExxonMobil found oil when he signed away 2 oil blocks to inexperienced firms just days before the May 11, 2015 general and regional elections. However, on May 8, 2015, just 3 days before elections, the People's Progressive Party, PPP, published an advertisement in the local newspaper saying that oil was found. The ad said, in what has been reported as exciting news to have emerged in the local energy sector, an Exxon exploration well located some 120 miles offshore Guyana had discovered hydrocarbons. Also in the ad is a picture of Romata, who was the PPP presidential candidate at the time, smiling and shaking hands with staff on board the drill ship. Deepwater Champion, as it conducted hydrocarbon exploration in the Stabroek Block. In light of the disparity between the contents of the advertisement and Ramota's statement to the media, which he continues to maintain, officials at the State Assess Recovery Agency said they will press on with its probe regarding the award of oil blocks. Finally, news from Jamaica. Ultrasound services at the Spanish Town Hospital in St. Catherine have been improved through the installation of a $9.4 million state-of-the-art machine donated by the Japanese government. Speaking at the official handover ceremony at the hospital on Wednesday, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton said that the machine will enable the facility to attend to more than 100 additional patients. He noted that Spanish Town Hospital is one of the busiest on the island, and we owe it to the citizens of this country to offer the best service. He said that the government is committed to ensuring that the public health system delivers on the ambition as outlined in the Vision 2030 National Development Plan to provide quality health services and promote healthy lifestyles and sound environmental practices. That's it for our regional stories. Stay with us for news around the world. Welcome back, and now the international news in detail. Human Rights Watch has condemned France and other countries for handing over responsibility for their citizens suspected of belonging to the Islamic State to countries where they could face torture. The pressure groups reports that 2 French citizens have alleged that they were tortured or forced to confess while imprisoned in Iraq. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Washington might refuse to share sensitive information with countries that uses 5th-generation mobile networks like Huawei, which it considers is insecure. The comments by Mr. Pompeo are the latest in a series of warnings against working with the Chinese telecoms giant. Speaking in Berlin, Mr. Pompeo said the U.S. wanted its allies to understand that it was not safe to involve Huawei in their 5G networks.
There's a second mission, which is to make sure that we educate our friends about these risks as well, that we talk to them plainly, openly about the risks we see, how we think they can be mitigated, and in the case of Huawei, are concerned that it is not possible to mitigate those anywhere inside of a 5G network and continue to view that as a trusted network.
Julian Assange has suffered prolonged exposure to psychological torture, the UN's torture expert has said. Nels Melzer urged Britain not to extradite the WikiLeaks founder, warning that his human rights would be violated and that he is not fit to stand trial. He has also accused several democratic states of a concerted effort to break Assange's will. The UK government said it disagreed with a number of his observations. A Justice Ministry spokesperson said the UK did not participate in torture. Judges were independent of the government and anyone convicted had the right to appeal, the spokesman added. U.S. financial markets are bracing themselves for further pressure following President Donald Trump's shocking decision to impose an escalating tariffs from all goods from Mexico next month if it doesn't curb illegal immigration. U.S. Treasury bond yields fell on Friday after the announcement, while shares in the 2 American car makers, General Motors and Ford, slipped sharply. The BBC's correspondent in Washington, Barbara Pletasha, says the reaction to the news has been very negative.
Everybody is asking questions like, is this even legal to use tariffs to deal with an immigration issue rather than a trade issue. Now, Mr. Trump has invoked national security powers, but I expect that will be contested. And also people are asking, is he actually going to go through with it? He does have a history of creating problems in order to fix them, but we do know that he has been getting angrier and angrier, that he hasn't been able to stop this flow of migrants at the border. He's just been itching to take a radical measure which grabs headlines and energizes his base because he thinks that will be necessary for his re-election campaign. He did make immigration a big part of his presidential campaign.
Finally, the U.S.-led coalition says its war on the Islamic State group in Iraq and Syria has unintentionally killed over 1,300 civilians since 2014. The figure is far lower than estimated by groups monitoring the conflict. The BBC's Arab Affairs analyst Sebastian Usher reports.
There's no doubt about the devastating firepower that the US-led coalition has brought to bear in its war on IS. In 4.5 years, the coalition has carried out more than 34,000 airstrikes. The devastation in parts of the two main IS strongholds, Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq, reveals the scars left by the offensive. The coalition says it did all it could to minimize casualties. It's now acknowledged a higher figure for civilian deaths, but it's still nowhere near the numbers estimated by others monitoring the conflict, with one independent group, Air Wars, saying the real toll could be between 8 to nearly 13,000 civilians killed.
That brings us to the end of our news segments. The latest in sports is next.
Need a car but don't quite have the deposit? You don't need a deposit with Suzuki Sign and Drive at TDC Automotive. Choose your Suzuki vehicle, sign up, and drive out. Get a brand new vehicle with 0 deposit, 5 years warranty, 1 year servicing, special financing and insurance, free flat screen TV with 3 months Flow TV package, free undercoating, free car care bundle, and so much more. Come in, sign up, drive out. Suzuki Sign and Drive at TDC Automotive. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, and now the sports in detail. In cricket, West Indies can take the World Cup by storm with their aggressive bumper warfare style of bowling attack, says former England spinner Graham Swan. The pace attack of Andrea Russell, Sheldon Cottrell, O'Shane Thomas and captain Jason Holder ripped through Pakistan to set up a dominant 7-wicket win at Trent Bridge. The scores were Pakistan 105 all out in 21.4 overs, West Indies 108 for 3 in 13.4 overs. West Indies won by 7 wickets with 218 balls remaining. West Indies face Australia next on Thursday, while Pakistan are likely to come up against more of the same against England on Monday. In basketball, the Toronto Raptors beat the Golden State Warriors in last night's NBA Final first game. The scores were Toronto Raptors 118 and Golden State Warriors 109, and the Raptors now lead 1-0. The teams will go up against each other on June 2, 2019 at 8 p.m. in Game 2. Finally, in football, Antonio Conte has been named Inter Milan manager, replacing the sacked Luciano Spalletti. The 49-year-old returns to work in Italy after being dismissed by Chelsea at the end of last season. He spent 2 years at Stamford Bridge, where he won the Premier League and FA Cup, having previously claimed 3 Serie A titles as boss of Juventus. Under Spalletti, Inter finished 4th in the league and qualified for the Champions League. Inter President Steven Zhang said he was sure Antonio Conte is one of the best coaches out there. That's it for the sports segment. The general weather forecast is next. Welcome back, and now the local weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis. The presence of a low-level trough and high levels of atmospheric moisture will continue to be enhanced by an upper-level trough and provide unsettled weather conditions over and around the islands during the next 24 hours and beyond. We anticipate roughly about 25 millimeters or inch of rainfall over the next 24 hours. With this being the case, along with an already saturated earth, a flash flood watch is now in place for most of the Leeward Islands until 8 p.m. tonight. A watch may become necessary for Anguilla and the BVI by tomorrow. Weather tonight, cloudy to overcast skies with widespread light rain accompanied by periods of moderate showers. Weather tomorrow, cloudy to overcast skies with periods of moderate to heavy showers. There's also a 50% or moderate chance of thunderstorms developing. Winds east-southeast at 12 to 18 knots, gusting higher during heavier showers. Seas 1.2 to 1.8 meters or 4 to 6 feet. Small craft operators should exercise caution, mainly against the adverse weather conditions over open waters. And sunrise tomorrow is at 5:36 a.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Friday, 31st May 2019. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, preparations being done for upcoming Atlantic hurricane season, so says Nevis's disaster management minister. And Premier Brantley addresses blacklisted Russian alleged associations to himself and to SKN. Regionally, USVI Governor Albert Bryan submits $1.2 billion executive budget. Internationally, Human Rights Watch condemns France for handing over their citizens suspected of crimes to countries that use torture. And in sports, West Indies bumper warfare could take World Cup by storm, says former England spinner Graham Swan. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Tammy Reed, wishing you a safe and enjoyable weekend. Thank you.